We've all heard the saying that if you leave eggs out for too long, they will spoil. Most of us cannot fathom eggs staying longer than a week or two without refrigeration. But what about the Amish? They have eggs that will outlast your refrigerator's warranty, no energy required. It's remarkable how they've maintained these traditions while the rest of us rely solely on contemporary appliances. For generations, they've worked out how to keep eggs fresh for years. Yes, years. Without using anything flashy or high-tech. This is when things become really fascinating. You would believe that keeping eggs fresh for 15 years involves high-tech equipment, but nope. One of the Amish's most trusted methods is as low-tech as they come. It includes lime water. Yes, lime, the kind you'd put in a glass of water on a hot day. But believe me, we're not mixing margaritas here. This method is game-changing and has been used for ages. And guess what? It actually works. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Lime water is a solution formed by dissolving calcium hydroxide in water. That sounds fancy, but it isn't. Calcium hydroxide is simply lime, also known as slaked lime, which has been utilized in a variety of applications for centuries, including construction and food preservation. So, what's the deal with eggs? The Amish soak their eggs in this lime water mixture, and the magic, or more precisely science, happens. Eggs contain microscopic pores all over their shells that allow air and germs to enter, eventually ruining them. However, when you immerse the eggs in lime water, the solution plugs the pores, forming an airtight barrier. No air or germs can enter, and your eggs can now survive for months, if not years, without spoiling. It's like giving the eggs a little armor. Germs can't win. Now, here's an interesting historical fact. Lime water preservation was not invented by the Amish. This approach has been in use since the Middle Ages, long before the invention of the refrigerator. People had to be resourceful back then if they wanted to keep their food for the winter, and this was one of the ways they did so. In some ways, the Amish are simply preserving age-old practices. However, they have mastered it in ways that most of us have forgotten. It's funny to believe that something as simple as lime water can accomplish what modern refrigeration cannot. Most of us panic when our refrigerators fail, but the Amish have a non-electric answer. In fact, this strategy may outlast your fridge and require fewer repairs along the way. The more I understand about this, the more I realize how reliant we've become on appliances. The scale at which the Amish achieve this, however, is truly astounding. They aren't just keeping a dozen eggs here and there, they're planning for the long haul. In a year, a family may store thousands of eggs with lime water, providing a consistent supply no matter what. It's a degree of preparedness that is difficult to comprehend unless you've witnessed it firsthand. I can barely keep count of the dozen eggs I buy at the grocery each week, but the Amish? They've got it all figured out with their eggs safely stored in lime water, waiting to be used. Another unusual but ingenious way the Amish retain their eggs in perfect condition for what seems like an eternity? Oiling. You may be wondering, wait, oiling, like you're prepping an egg for a massage. Sort of. The Amish cover their eggs with mineral oil, a basic, safe material that produces astonishing results. Here's how it works. As previously said, eggshells are packed with tiny microscopic pores that allow air and other harmful microorganisms to enter. Over time, this is what causes the eggs to deteriorate. However, with oil, these pores are totally sealed. It's like enclosing the egg in a protective bubble that keeps oxygen out and prevents it from transforming into that stinky, sulfur-scented scientific experiment we all detest. If you're unfamiliar with this strategy, you're not alone. It appears crazy at first. Most of us probably wouldn't think of slathering oil on our goods. For the record, do not try this with your milk. However, the Amish have known about it for a long time, and modern homesteaders are rediscovering it. Mineral oil is inexpensive, readily available, and does not destroy the eggs. Rather, it maintains them nice and warm. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. In fact, more and more people are trying it because, let's be honest, there's something magical about having eggs that can outlast the milk in your fridge. I gave this a shot once just out of curiosity. Who wouldn't want to try out a trick that could spare them a trip to the grocery store at the last minute? So I took a bottle of mineral oil from the local pharmacy. You can find it in the skincare area, believe it or not, and began oiling some eggs. It seemed strange at first, almost like I was preparing the eggs for a deep fry, but a few weeks later, they were as fresh as the day I got them. Who knew that a little oil could be so useful outside of the kitchen? And here's a fun fact: the concept of covering food to preserve it is not new. People used to coat cheese and meat with lard to keep them fresher for longer. In truth, the concept of sealing food from air has been around for millennia, despite being mostly forgotten in the age of plastic wrap and vacuum sealers. Oiling is very cool because it is so simple. There's no fancy science or intricate techniques involved. Simply coat the egg and call it a day. Furthermore, it is a process that everyone can try at home, with no special tools or ingredients required. A bottle of mineral oil is all you need, and you'll have eggs to last you all winter, or even longer if you're feeling experimental. Okay, now on to the next amazing egg-preserving method from the Amish playbook: vinegar. Yes, the same acidic, sour liquid that you may spread on your fries or toss into a salad is also helping the Amish preserve their eggs over time. And believe me, this strategy is far more beneficial than simply sprucing up your potato chips. The concept behind vinegar preservation is simple. Eggs are dipped in vinegar for a minute bath, and the acidic nature of vinegar works its magic by breaking down bacteria and forming a protective barrier on the shell. It's almost like upgrading the egg's armor, but there are no swords or shields required here, just a simple bottle of vinegar. Once the eggs have soaked, they will survive much longer than the ordinary carton resting in the fridge. I always assumed vinegar was only used for cooking and cleaning, but I had no idea it had these preservation properties, and this tactic appears to have a long history. I read that Roman soldiers used vinegar to keep their food fresh during the long, harsh marches. It's remarkable to think of those hardy warriors storing their food in the same way that the Amish preserve eggs centuries later. I'm just glad I'm not doing all of the walking. Imagine dragging around vinegar-soaked eggs while fighting in battle. There's a reason why that part isn't included in history books. But here's the kicker: vinegar's effectiveness extends beyond eggs. It's an ancient cooking technique that folks have used for everything from pickling vegetables to preserving meat. I'm sure we've all been wary of food languishing in vinegar. It has that, "Is this really still good?" However, the Amish, and it appears that the Romans, knew better. It turned out that vinegar was one of their all-purpose survival tools. If it was good enough for them, it's safe to assume it will keep your eggs fresh as well. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. I haven't tried the vinegar dip with eggs yet, but after learning about it, I'm tempted. I'm already envisioning the possibilities: a tucked-away stash of vinegar-smelling eggs that will remain fresh for months. And when the apocalypse strikes, or if you simply forget to go grocery shopping, you'll be sitting on a golden hoard of preserved breakfast. Plus, there's something strangely fulfilling about employing such a simple, natural chemical to deceive time. If vinegar could talk, I suppose it would have a very impressive resume. Cleaning agent? Check. A salad dressing staple? Yes, of course. Egg preserver? Who knew? And if you've ever been hesitant to use vinegar for anything outside of the kitchen, consider this your green light. It's versatile, inexpensive, and, who knew, quite useful for protecting your eggs from spoiling. Let's get down to business. What causes eggs to go bad? We've all had the terrible experience of cracking open an egg only to discover that it's less than fresh. But why does this occur in the first place? Bacteria, air, and moisture are the most common offenders. Eggs, while cleverly built by nature, have a few flaws. Bacteria can enter through tiny gaps in the shell. Moisture can accumulate and provide the ideal setting for mold. And let's not forget air. Oxidation is your enemy when it comes to keeping eggs fresh. Here's where Amish egg-preserving techniques excel. While most of us are putting our eggs in the fridge and praying for the best, the Amish are aggressively defeating their adversaries like seasoned warriors. Remember your lime water bath. It shuts up the shell's pores, preventing microorganisms from entering. What is the procedure of oiling? It's like locking the door and throwing away the key, no air or moisture allowed. And what about the vinegar dip we mentioned earlier? A quick and effective way to kill any germs before they have a chance to party inside the egg. These are not just gimmicks. They are answers to problems that most of us are unaware of. And I used to believe that my refrigerator was the egg saver in my life. Little did I know that it was an overhyped sidekick. Sure, refrigeration slows things down, but it doesn't stop deterioration. Fun fact, what about the eggs you buy at the grocery store? Yes, they have previously been washed and handled, removing their natural protective covering. So, while your eggs may appear glossy and new on the outside, they're probably over halfway through their expiration date before you even bring them home. Surprise, you've been misled by those gleaming grocery shop displays all along. And guess what? Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Eggs do not need to be refrigerated, at least not in the way that we are used to. In Europe, for example, eggs are not even refrigerated in stores. Instead, they are left on the counter or in the pantry. Only in the United States and a few other places has refrigeration been necessary due to regulations that compel eggs to be washed, depriving them of their natural defenses. So, while we're frantically trying to squeeze everything into the fridge, the Amish are over there, cool as cucumbers, letting their eggs out for months or years at a time with no trouble. Now, I am not recommending that you start leaving your grocery store eggs out on the counter. After the industrial process has taken its toll on those newborns, they require refrigeration. But isn't it strange to contemplate how much of what we deem necessary is simply a contemporary invention? The Amish are here to teach us that, with a little know-how and some basic ingredients like lime or oil, you can keep your eggs fresh for longer than we ever thought possible. No fridge required. When it comes to storing eggs for years, the Amish don't merely drop them into lime water or coat them with oil. No, they're far more picky than that. In fact, you could say they put their eggs through a beauty pageant before ever considering preservation. And believe me, these eggs go through a more rigorous screening process than we do for some job interviews. First of all, freshness is essential. The Amish will not bother to preserve eggs that are more than a few days old. They have a keen eye, and often an acute nose, for detecting an egg that is past its prime. Imagine going to the grocery store and squeezing every avocado to find the ideal one. Now imagine it with eggs. Can this egg pass the freshness test? Does it look good? Feels right? You're in. They might say something, at least in their heads. There's also a bit of a crack test, but not the kind you're expecting. The Amish are experts at detecting hairline cracks, those subtle faults that you wouldn't see unless you paid careful attention. Eggs with even the smallest fracture are instantly excluded because cracks allow bacteria to enter. In some ways, it's similar like picking apples at the grocery store. You scrutinize each one for bruises and defects before putting it in your cart, right? It's really similar, but much more serious. After all, if you're going to keep this egg for 15 years, it should be perfect. Fun fact, an ordinary Amish family could easily keep thousands of eggs in a year. Yes, thousands. Given the size of their families and the amount of baking and cooking they perform, those eggs are critical. Imagine cracking up eggs for breakfast pancakes and knowing they were preserved while your child was just learning to walk. If there was an Amish Guinness World Record for egg preservation, these people would undoubtedly claim the honor. You may be wondering why you should go to such lengths to handpick the ideal eggs. When you plan on storing something for years rather than days or weeks, you should start with the greatest quality possible. A poor egg will not only destroy the dozen, but it will also cause you to severely reconsider your life choices a decade later. Nobody wants that level of remorse, especially the Amish, who value doing things correctly the first time. Don't imagine this pickiness occurs only once. The Amish check their preserved eggs on a frequent basis over the months, if not years, that they have been stored. Any indication of a faulty egg, and it's out. In this scenario, the Amish slogan could be, "No bad eggs left behind." But that's just my interpretation. When it comes to egg preservation, the Amish have a few tactics that may appear out of the ordinary. Dry storage is one of the most basic but efficient strategies they use. That's right. No fancy processes, no intricate formulas, just good old-fashioned cool, dry areas where eggs can relax and unwind as if on vacation. You could even argue that they're placing their eggs in a time capsule, but without the difficulty of picking what to put in there with the eggs. This strategy is based on taking advantage of the natural surroundings. Many Amish homes include spaces specifically constructed for food preservation. These areas are frequently cooler and more humid than the ordinary kitchen, making them excellent for keeping eggs fresh without having to turn on the refrigerator. It's similar to that cabinet you keep forgetting about, where the canned beans lurk and deteriorate, except this time the eggs turn out properly after a year or two. Imagine discovering a stockpile of eggs hidden away like a secret treasure, but instead of gold doubloons, you get breakfast. You might be wondering how they manage to keep eggs fresh without using any extra treatments. Think about it. Eggs have inherent protective shields. The shells are robust and do an excellent job of keeping the bad stuff out as long as you don't open them too soon. The Amish simply let the eggs do their thing in a cool, dry environment, almost like putting them on a moderate hiatus. There's no stress or strain, simply waiting for the ideal moment to snap and scramble. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Interestingly, this strategy emphasizes how many modern amenities we take for granted. We live in a world where refrigeration is anticipated, and if our leftovers are left out for too long, we panic. However, the Amish have demonstrated that things can be easier at times. Consider how frequently we toss things in the fridge, only to forget about them until they're well past their prime. Have you ever noticed an old container of spaghetti in the back? At that time, you are essentially feeding a new life form. On a personal level, I've had my fair share of fridge tragedies, such as the time I discovered a forgotten carton of eggs tucked in the back corner, so old they could have been featured in a historical exhibit. However, the Amish have mastered the art of not wasting food by using basic ways. They trust their intuition and natural processes, so there's no need to be concerned about mold or strange scents. Another fascinating fact: eggs are used for more than simply breakfast in a normal Amish family. They are an essential element in baking, thus their longevity is critical. Imagine baking cookies using eggs that have been preserved for years. That is a testament to their ability. What is the best part? If you preserve eggs properly, you may find that they taste better than anything you can buy at the grocery store. The beauty of dry storage is that it reconnects the Amish with their land and traditions. They know what works for them and stick with it. No expensive equipment or contemporary gadgets required, just nature's basics and a little patience. Patience is a refreshing perspective that we might all benefit from, particularly in our fast-paced lives when we frequently ignore the benefits of simplicity. Let us address the elephant in the room. Are these preserved eggs actually safe to eat? Who wouldn't be apprehensive about opening into something that has been around for years? It's a real problem that merits a thorough examination, especially if you've ever cracked an egg and the fragrance made you cringe. But don't worry, the Amish have been doing this for generations, and they appear to know a thing or two about food safety. To begin, how eggs are handled and stored is critical to their preservation. When used properly, these ways can preserve eggs fresh for an extended period of time. The Amish have used tactics such as lime water soaking, oiling, and dry storage to not only keep the eggs intact but also limit the likelihood of unpleasant shocks when it comes time to cook. Imagine having a supply of eggs ready for a baking marathon, with the only concern being whether you have enough chocolate chips. You may be shocked to learn that the procedure of keeping eggs might actually increase their safety. Fresh eggs have a protective layer that keeps pathogens out. When the coating is removed, the clock begins to tick again. However, when properly kept, eggs maintain that barrier and can outlast anything found in the grocery store. If you've ever stood in the egg aisle, you know that even the most fresh-looking eggs can be difficult to identify. The glossy, carefully packed items frequently have a backstory that makes you think twice. Spoiler alert, they're already a couple weeks old by the time they reach your cart. Now here's a great little story. I have a friend who tried preserved eggs for the first time. She was doubtful, wrinkling her nose when she opened it. But guess what? It was totally fine. No strange odors, no unusual textures, just a good old-fashioned egg. She became an instant devotee, and now she swears by the concept of keeping her own eggs. It's interesting how our perceptions can shift after we have first-hand experience with something. Speaking of experiences, here are some stories from people who have been experimenting with preserved eggs for decades. Many people have expressed their delight at biting into an egg that had been hanging around for years and finding it deliciously fresh. Some have even used preserved eggs in baking competitions. Yes, they are that confident. What is the best part? The majority of them record no trips to the doctor. If that isn't a wonderful endorsement, I'm not sure what is. However, just because the Amish have been doing this for centuries does not imply that it is a free-for-all. They recognize their eggs and have a few simple regulations in place to keep them secure. First, fresh eggs are the greatest candidates for preservation. They'll examine each one as if it were a rare jewel. If there are any cracks or strange places, it won't make the cut. If you ever watch an Amish farmer at work, you may notice that they treat their eggs with the same care that you would give a delicate piece of art. When it comes to eating preserved eggs, the most important guideline is to trust your instincts before biting into that 15-year-old egg. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Remember the water test. Anything that floats is a no-go. A sunk egg? You're perfect. It's a simple, effective method for removing any potential problems before they reach your skillet. Now that we've covered the safety of preserved eggs, let's get to the fun part: how you can join the ranks of egg-preserving lovers. You may be wondering, do I need a secret Amish Society password to get started? No. With a little perseverance and some simple supplies, you can become your kitchen's egg guru. First and foremost, let's discuss supplies. You'll want fresh, unwashed eggs, preferably from a local farm. If you can get some from free-range hens, that would be ideal. Fresh eggs have the miraculous protective layer we mentioned before, which is critical for proper preservation. And here's a tip. While purchasing eggs, don't be bashful about inspecting them for cracks and defects. No one wants a spoiled surprise when it comes to making an omelet. After you've acquired your fresh eggs, you'll need to decide how you want to preserve them. Let's start with the lime water approach, which is one of the most basic. All you'll need is food-grade lime calcium hydroxide and water. Mix 1 ounce of lime into a quart of water until dissolved. Now comes the fun part: soaking the eggs. Place them carefully in a container and pour the lime water mixture over them, making sure they are completely submerged. It's like giving your eggs a mini spa treatment. If you're feeling fancy and want to try your hand at oiling, get some mineral oil, available at most drugstores or online. The method is simple. Dab a paper towel in the oil and rub it over the surface of each egg. This procedure aids in air purification and the prevention of bacterial growth. Your eggs will appreciate the extra attention. They're virtually receiving a luxury treatment. If vinegar piques your interest, dip your eggs in a vinegar solution. Simply combine equal parts vinegar and water and dip the eggs. It's a simple procedure that involves little effort, yet produces maximum impact. And if it works for pickles, it should work for eggs too. Storage is another key factor. Once you've preserved your eggs using your preferred method, keep them in a cool, dark, and dry area. Amish homes frequently have specially built food preservation facilities, but you may use a basement, a cold cellar, or even a pantry. The idea is to keep the eggs at a consistent temperature and away from direct sunshine. There's no need for sophisticated equipment here. Just a little common sense would suffice. Now, if you're feeling very daring, why not experiment with other preservation methods? Who says you can't combine and match? Try soaking some eggs in lime water, oiling some, and dipping some in vinegar. It's like having your very own egg laboratory right in your kitchen. You'll also impress your friends with your culinary experiments. Everyone enjoys a good story about eggs that can survive in the fridge. While you're at it, jot down your observations. Create an egg journal to keep track of the ways you used, how long the eggs lasted, and your favorite recipes for using them. You'll be shocked at how rapidly you'll improve your egg-preserving abilities. You might even encourage someone else to join the movement. You'll quickly become the go-to person in your network for egg-related inquiries. Consider this. Friends gather around, eyes wide with astonishment as you expose your stockpile of preserved eggs, sharing stories about their journeys and recipes for bringing those eggs to life. It's all about building a community around these traditional skills and spreading the joy of food preservation. Hey, who knows? Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Maybe one day you'll be in a baking competition proudly declaring, "These eggs? They're 15 years old. Want a taste?" Just remember to trust your instincts, adhere to the rules, and have some fun along the way. With a sprinkle of imagination and a dash of persistence, you'll be well on your way to joining the egg-preserving elite. Think it's difficult to check for expired milk? How about breaking open a 15-year-old egg? That's a whole other level of egg-citement. The good news is that the Amish have some simple procedures for ensuring that those long-preserved eggs do not send you to the restroom. Spoiler alert. A simple water test can rescue you from a breakfast disaster. First, let's discuss why testing an old egg is important. While the prospect of eating a preserved egg that has been sitting for a decade and a half may sound like a food safety nightmare, it doesn't have to be. The key is to trust your instincts, and there's no better way to do so than with this handy water test. So get a bowl of water, preferably not the one you use to soak dirty dishes, because that would be a completely different type of nasty. Pay special attention when you drop an egg into water. Congratulations if it sinks and lies flat on the bottom. You have a winner ready to be a part of your next culinary creation. This signifies it's still fresh and suitable for the frying pan. But hold your horses. If the egg stays erect or, worse, floats to the top, it's a red signal. It's time to say goodbye to the egg and make a solemn promise to your future egg endeavors. I won't crack open anything that might make my stomach doubt its life choices. I recall the first time I tested an old egg. I felt I was being courageous and daring. I boldly grabbed a somewhat older egg from my collection, dropped it into the bowl, and saw it rise to the surface like a buoy in the sea. My heart dropped faster than the egg I had hoped for. Lesson learned. The joy of adventure can be eclipsed by the reality of rotten eggs. Who knew a small egg could educate me about trust? And here's the kicker. Even if an egg passes the water test, you may want to use your nose as a backup. Take a good whiff after you crack it open. If it smells even slightly odd, like a nasty fish market on a hot day, throw it out without hesitation. Your nose can detect what's nice. Remember that the Amish rely on all of their senses, and so should you. If you're feeling adventurous, try the float test on a batch of eggs that are newer but still a little past their prime. This can be an excellent approach to gain experience before venturing into the field of long-term preservation. It also provides an occasion to attempt all of the egg dishes you've been wanting to try. Who doesn't enjoy a tasty frittata or fluffy omelet? Just make sure your buddies aren't holding their breath as you split open the eggs. Believe me, the suspense can be a little intense. In today's world, when food waste accounts for about 30% of total production, Amish egg preservation practices are more essential than ever. If they can make eggs last for years without modern comforts, we can certainly learn a thing or two. These approaches not only save money, but also limit the number of trips to the grocery store, which is great for those of us who want to avoid the latest overhyped health foods. Furthermore, food preservation evokes nostalgia, connecting generations. Imagine passing down family egg preservation practices. It's far more meaningful than perusing through social media. Furthermore, the sustainability aspect cannot be overlooked. As we face growing food prices and environmental issues, the Amish demonstrate that self-reliance is both practical and environmentally benign. Press the subscribe button now to see more Amish and traditional ways of living healthy. Let's not forget how useful these abilities are in times of need, such as power outages. Learning how to preserve food can make a significant difference. You may become the go-to person at potlucks, proudly serving a dish cooked from a 15-year-old egg. It's all about adopting a lifestyle that emphasizes both sustainability and creativity. So, whether you live in the city or the rural, taking a break from the fridge to experiment with food preservation could be transformative. At the very least, you won't have to worry about fridge space again.